Hi, my name's Citabria Stevens, and I'm one of the managing editors here at Stratfor, and I'm joined today by Mark Schroeder, our Vice President of Africa Analysis, and we're going to talk about Boko Haram. On October 17th, the Nigerian government announced that they'd reached a ceasefire agreement with Boko Haram and that they were going to release the 200 schoolgirls that had been kidnapped in April. But since then, there have been skirmishes, and we haven't seen any sign of the girls, and they're allegedly still negotiating the release. This isn't really surprising, though, because as you've said, Mark, Boko Haram is an inherently fractured group, and it exists largely because of Nigeria's political structure. So I was wondering if, first off, you could explain the splintered nature of Boko Haram and how that's adverse to a ceasefire and why that might prevent the girls from being released, at least in the near future.
Sure. Boko Haram is a decentralized organizational structure, and it does make it inherently very difficult to enforce any kind of agreement within that structure. And so a ceasefire, such as what we observed last Friday in Nigeria, will be difficult to enforce across the whole of the structure of Boko Haram, across its cells that exist not only in northeastern Nigeria, but northwestern Nigeria and in central parts of Nigeria.
So you've said that Boko Haram's existence is basically rooted in Nigeria's political structure and that it's not the only militant group that thrives because of that. And as you've discussed before, you have the presidency that's split between the North and the South. So when there's a Southern president, such as President Goodluck Jonathan now, there's usually a Northern vice president. So can you explain that political structure and how it makes these militant groups thrive?
Sure. Nigeria does have a understanding that political power is shared across different regions of the country. The current government is led by President Goodluck Jonathan, that you mentioned, who comes from the Niger Delta region in the southern part of the country. But Jonathan's presidency is controversial, and some in Nigeria view that he has usurped that presidency from his predecessor, who had come from northern Nigeria. Now, as part of the political struggle in Nigeria, militant groups and gangs are used to achieve political ends, and there are deeply held allegations that Boko Haram is sponsored by aggrieved Nigerian politicians who are dissenting against the Goodluck Jonathan administration. Conversely, other militant groups in Nigeria have agitated in support of Goodluck Jonathan, the current president of Nigeria. And those groups are found in Jonathan's home region, the Niger Delta. And so you have this very robust dynamic in Nigeria of competing gangs and militant groups sponsored by political interests to achieve political ends.
And so we have an election coming up next year, possibly as early as February. I mean, things are very still up in the air. President Jonathan hasn't even said if he's going to run for sure yet. So I'm wondering if you could explain what might happen with Niger Delta militants, for example, if a northerner were to get the next presidency.
That's really a great question, and that really speaks to the heart of kind of the economy of Nigeria. Whereas Boko Haram is a very robust Islamist militant group currently active in northeastern Nigeria, attacking government and military and civilian sites in the northern part of Nigeria. But at the same time, this does not strike at economic substance in Nigeria. Whereas Niger Delta militants who were active a few years ago would hold hostage effectively the oil and gas industry. And they would attack pipelines and flow stations and loading platforms, as well as kidnap foreign oil workers and really, try to deny oil and gas production in Nigeria. Niger Delta militants have threatened to resume their militancy campaign if their patron, Goodluck Jonathan, is not reelected in next year's election. And so that really is the dynamic at play in Nigeria.
And another thing we spoke about earlier was that displaced youth really play a role in perpetuating these militancies. Could you explain a little bit about that and how this just isn't going to go away?
In the case of the Niger Delta region, the militants that were hired by political interests from that region were unemployed youth. and they were incentivized by small amounts of money to attack the oil and gas interests in that region. Since Goodluck Jonathan was elected vice president in the first place, and since he became president, he has been able to oversee various patronage programs that have accommodated these unemployed youth and really steered them away from militancy. In the case of Boko Haram, many unemployed youth are taken in by political sponsors or other civil society leaders, and they are indoctrinated or influenced to help fight or support Boko Haram. Without job prospects, they're easily swayed to join this insurgency or support it one way or another. Yeah. And so a patronage program like what we saw in Nigeria, would have to be part of a solution to countering the elements that give rise to Boko Haram.
Thanks, Mark. That was great and informative. And for more on this and other topics, go to stratfor.com.